Born and raised in Toronto. I grew up in North York. I both parents are Nigerian, so immigrant parents. Um, I went to Madonna, which is an all girls Catholic school. I also went to Weston Collegiate. From there, I went to, well, I actually had a pause because I was like, I don't know about school. I want to take like a gap year, and my mother wasn't having it. Like I didn't apply to any schools, and it's not that school was difficult for me. I was just like, I'm working, I'm making money. I think I want to take my time. And September came around, and my mom was like, "Yeah, over my dead body." And so the only school that I was able to get into in September of the starting school year was Humber Lakeshore campus. So I went there for a semester, and then I transferred. Then I transferred to York. So I started off in psychology, and I got a D in that class. And um, if you don't get higher than a C, there's no pass. Like you have to basically do it again. I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna switch. And so
Okay.
my major was sociology, and I had a minor in business. Um, I started working in my last year at L'Oreal. I was working as an account manager, and my account was Zellers. The head office was in Montreal, so I traveled to Montreal often. And then I was there for about 2 years, and I was like, I want to see more. And for me at the time, my experience was primarily like my friends were working at call centers, and like I didn't really see growth around me. I didn't see those opportunities for people who look like me. The people who look like me, who I saw that had opportunities, lived elsewhere, and primarily in the States. And so I was like, okay, well, let's see what's going on over here. And at the time with L'Oreal, I could either move to New York or I could move to Paris because that's where the company was located. And for me, I moved to New York. I actually got a job with Pepsi. And so I was working in the brand space primarily on what their innovation pipeline would look like. And, given that many people were no longer drinking soda, or pop,
Yes, pop, pop. I got
people weren't
laughed at when I
drinking.
came to the US saying
Yes.
pop. Like, what is that?
People weren't
Go
drinking
on.
as much. And so it was, what does the innovation pipeline look like? The idea of like share of stomach. So, what are some other things? Water, juice, partnership with Starbucks. And then I got my foray into tech. So, my next job was at Nokia. And in Nokia, I was the head of strategy planning and insights for North America. And like brand new to tech. I mean, I was always interested in tech. So at one point when I didn't get into school on time, I considered doing my MCSE, if you remember that, the Microsoft Certified Engineer.
Yes, sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
I considered that. Um, anyway, nonetheless, so I'm at Nokia and in a whole different world. I mean, like, and you basically immerse yourself in the culture of learning about, operating systems and what devices are coming out. And Nokia was like a very engineering focused company. And so you learned all of the steps. And I was there at a time where the iPhone launched. And during my tenure, a lot of people were naysayers. They didn't feel like the iPhone would be that successful. I was not one
Oh,
of those.
that's so good.
Um,
Yep,
at the
yep.
time, BlackBerry and RIM is, based out of Canada, and I was like, guys, we like this. We got to pay attention to what's going on around us. And people were kind of like, eh. At the time, Nokia had 40% global market share, and so when you're that big, you're just kind of like, these guys are buying our patents. Like, this is small stuff. But the reality, and what really changed the landscape is that, especially in this market, is that devices started to be subsidized, right? So we came from a world, at least in the Nokia space, where people were going in and dropping $600 on a phone, $300, like that was just natural for the smartphone space. And then in this market, it was like you could come in and pick up a phone for $0, right? I mean, you would pay for it over time, but you could leave the store without actually having paid for the device. And so that changed the way, and it changed the proliferation of devices. And so you had Droid launch at Verizon, and you had Apple launch later at what was, I think, Singular. I don't know if it was either Singular or AT&T at the time. And so over time, you just saw like all of these smartphones just coming out of the woodwork. Samsung, LG, everybody was in the space, and it was like truly smartphone wars. And where it was advantageous to Google, even though they weren't really in the space, was from a platform standpoint because of Android, right? There was like everybody was on Android that wasn't on iOS or, RIM's platform or Microsoft at the time. And so within this market, because Nokia would manufacture their product to support other regions. And so you would have things like radio frequency that's not meant for the US, and because the US was not a prioritized market, whereas everybody else was like, we're prioritizing for the US. And so market share really started to dwindle. And it got to a point where it was a question of, are we going to remain on the Symbian platform, or are we going to move to something else? And so I was like, yes, Android, let's go. Go for it. And everybody, each of the groups, like, so my group for North America, there was a person who led Latin America, EMEA, et cetera. Everybody had to come up with a point of view on, like, what operating system we felt would be best. And I was like Android all the way, and like I had all my points, and we went with Windows Phone. And
Okay.
at the time in this market, it was uh, Windows Phone and then Symbian. So we were getting rid of Symbian, and now we were jumping on Windows Phone. I was like, but we're still going to be in last place. Like that doesn't advance us from a platform standpoint. Nonetheless, I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and this might be sacrilegious, but at the time, we definitely felt that the new head of Nokia, Stephen Elop, was a plant for Microsoft, and then we went with
Oh my
Windows
gosh.
Phone, and down the
Oh, I see.
line, Microsoft bought Nokia. I mean, I'm not saying
Wow.
anything untoward
Sure,
was happening. I'm just saying,
sure.
it's a lot of coincidences.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, this is a fascinating history lesson. Go on. Okay.
Right. Okay. And so from there, I consulted at Verizon on what would become their Go 90 product. So they wanted to foray into content because it's like their smartphone proliferation. So what are some of the other things that we can do as a form of making money for the company? So I was there for a little bit, and at the time, I was having conversations with what was Beats at the time, and I got a job with Beats, and it signed my paperwork. I was like, yes. And 3 days later, they called me. They're like, hey, Justine, I'm sorry, we're going to have to put this job on hold. Um, yes, and it was because it had leaked. Thank you, Tyrese. It had leaked that Apple was acquiring Beats, and so
Fascinating.
that that went away. And I stayed in touch with them. There were opportunities, but nothing that felt meaningful enough for me. I did a stint for 6 months at like a media agency, and then Apple came back, and they're like, we've got a role for you, leading kind of our entertainment marketing, so books, movies, news, TV, podcasts, music. And I was
Wow,
like, sign me up, here I go.
that
And
is
so I moved
huge.
from New York to Los Angeles. And part of my team sat in Los Angeles, and the rest of my team sat in Cupertino. So I was literally on the Airbus every
Back
week,
and forth.
back and
Yeah.
forth. And it was really interesting because I had watched Apple, like literally I was like looking over the fence for 4 years, essentially, because I would watch all of the keynote presentations, like, I watched, how and for me, the turning point, the really big turning point for them was in 2010 with the launch of the iPad, because everybody who was anybody had a BlackBerry Curve, you know what I mean? People had maybe, one smartphone, sometimes two, but for sure it was like them all the way, and then slowly, like, you started chip away with Droid and all these other devices, and, for me, I always had a Nokia device just by virtue of working at the company, but because I was very much, the insights, so like research, focus groups, I needed to know what was going on in the market. I was very much at first like, oh, this Apple thing, like these people are lining up. It's not that serious. Like, it's overblown. And when the iPad came out, I was like, okay, let me see what this is about, because internally we were having conversations around tablets. And so, okay, let's see what they're doing. And when I got a hold of that iPad, I was like, oh, this is a big iPhone, and I understand now.
Right.
Um, and,
Right.
um, and so I subsequently after that, I got an iPhone. And once you start to chip it, like once you start to add pieces, and really the secret that nobody tells you and nobody will ever admit is that really it's software. It's the system that locks you in. And Apple never promoted it, but like it was like seamless. Like, oh, what I do here, I can do here, and oh, okay, now I have a Mac, and all of these things talk to each other. Okay, great. And so the music that I've saved here is on my phone. Oh, wonderful. And they've they've only made that system better and smarter, and like so much so that like when you get a new phone, remember when you used to have to transfer your contacts and all these, like, it just seems so foreign, but, like, now it's just like, "Okay, yeah, give me my new phone. Great, like, just let's go," It's not like, "Let me stick this thing in and get the SIM card out and make sure it's the right SIM." It's seamless, and so it's things like that, like, and, Apple has an 80% loyalty rate with their devices. And so it's just, you're just like, "Great, I know what I'm getting next." Like, I don't even know what the new features are, but yes, I'm getting it because this is where I live now. And so for me, from a services standpoint, it's like, how do we increase stickiness? How do we make sure that people are still attached, right? Because you build a world around them. So it's like, okay, what else? You like to read? You like to watch movies? You like to listen to podcasts? All of it. So all of it exists, and now, you see, fitness. I mean, it's again, it's how do we surround you? And I hear there's cars coming out, and I'm like, "Show me the car." I'm interested.
I wanted to make a quick plug for Endeavor. Can you share just
Yes.
quick transition to Endeavor, what you're up to, Endeavor,
Absolutely,
and
yes. So
yeah.
so, Endeavor is a portfolio company that consists of, William Morris Endeavor, which is the talent agency, IMG, which is sports and entertainment. I mean, there are over 50 companies, so I sit across all of the companies, from a marketing standpoint, helping to establish kind of our brand identity, our ethos, our values, how we market ourselves. And it varies because some of our companies are B2B, some of them are B2C, some of them are B2B2C. We've got the Miami Open, we've got Freeze Art Fair. I mean, it varies from day to day. So my like, I jump from one meeting to the next and can be talking about two diametrically opposed type businesses. So it keeps me on my toes. It keeps things really interesting.